In the vast expanse of space, humanity's first contact with alien life didn't go quite as expected. We weren't greeted with diplomatic overtures or hostile invasion fleets. Instead, we were met with something far more insulting: laughter. The Zakshuri, a sophisticated spacefaring civilization, found our military forces absolutely hilarious. Their towering, crystalline forms would shimmer with amusement every time they observed our training exercises or combat demonstrations. Such primitive bipeds, they would comment through their translation devices, their crystalline bodies pulsing with colors that our xenobiologists identified as their equivalent of mocking laughter. They require external armor and crude projectile weapons. How did they even achieve spaceflight? Their dismissive attitude only grew stronger as they watched our soldiers train at the Joint Military Base in Nevada, where humanity's first official contact site had been established. To be fair, when compared to their energy-based weapons and nearly indestructible crystalline bodies, our rifles and body armor did seem rather basic. The Zakshuri warriors could withstand direct hits from our heaviest conventional weapons, and their natural ability to redirect energy made most of our advanced tech look like children's toys. They didn't even bother with defensive positions during the joint training exercises. They simply stood there, letting our best weapons bounce off their gleaming surfaces. That's how things went for the first 3 months after first contact. Our generals grew increasingly frustrated, our soldiers' morale started to dip, and the public's confidence in our ability to defend Earth began to waver. The Zakshuri weren't hostile. They were worse. They were condescending, treating us like amusing pets who were trying to play at being real warriors. Everything changed during what was supposed to be another routine demonstration of Earth's military capabilities. It started like any other day, with the Zakshuri representatives standing in their usual spot, their bodies flickering with those now familiar patterns of amusement. But then Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen walked onto the training field, and she wasn't alone. The Zakshuri's mocking colors suddenly froze when they saw what accompanied her. Walking beside Sarah were 2 Belgian Malinois, their muscular forms alert and focused, and 3 German shepherds, their ears perked forward as they studied the aliens with intense concentration. Behind them came a pair of Rottweilers and a gray-coated Siberian husky, moving with silent, predatory grace. For the first time since their arrival, the Zakshuri showed something other than amusement or condescension. Their crystalline forms clouded with what our xenobiologists would later identify as uncertainty, even traces of fear. They shifted backwards, their usual confident stance replaced by something more defensive. What manner of creatures are these? Their leader demanded, their translation device unable to fully mask the tremor in their transmitted voice. They are not like you. Their eyes, they see through us. Sarah just smiled, running her hand along her Malinois's head. These are Earth's first warriors, she said quietly. They've fought alongside humans for thousands of years. They can sense things we can't, detect threats we miss, and their loyalty and courage are beyond question. Would you like to see what they can do? The alien's response was lost in the sudden, thunderous chorus of barking that echoed across the training field. The sound seemed to penetrate the very crystalline structure of the Zakshuri, making them vibrate in ways we'd never seen before. As our canine warriors held their ground, teeth bared and eyes locked on their targets, one thing became abundantly clear: the laughing had stopped. And that was just the beginning of how dogs changed humanity's standing in the galactic community forever. What followed in the next few moments would later be described in the history books as the demonstration. Sarah Chen gave a subtle hand signal, and her Malinois, Rex, dropped into a perfect stalking position. The Zakshuri's crystalline bodies flickered rapidly, their equivalent of nervous fidgeting. They had faced countless species across the galaxy, but something about these 4-legged Earth predators triggered what appeared to be an ancient, instinctual response. Your kind has invented faster-than-light travel, Sarah noted calmly, her hand still resting on Rex's head. You've mastered energy weapons and achieved things we can only dream of. But I'm willing to bet you've never encountered anything quite like our companions here. Would you care to learn why? The Zakshuri leader, whose name translated roughly to bright gleam of victory, took what appeared to be a steadying pose. We are not easily impressed by primitive biological entities, they transmitted, but the usual condescension in their tone rang hollow. Your creatures appear to be nothing more than organic security drones. Sarah's smile widened slightly. Permission to demonstrate their capabilities, sir, she asked, glancing toward General Thompson, who had been watching the proceedings with carefully concealed satisfaction. He gave a slight nod, and Sarah turned back to the aliens. We've prepared a special training scenario. Would you care to observe? What happened next left even the human observers breathless, despite having seen similar demonstrations before. On Sarah's command, the dogs spread out in perfect formation, each taking their assigned positions. The training field suddenly came alive with holographic projections, a simulated combat scenario featuring various alien threats, including crystal-based life forms similar to the Zaxuri. The dogs moved like living shadows, their movements coordinated with a precision that spoke of thousands of years of evolutionary refinement as pack hunters. They didn't just respond to commands. They anticipated, adapted, and worked together in ways that made the Zaxuri's previous mockery of human military capabilities seem deeply ironic. Rex led the charge, demonstrating why Malinois were often called Maligators in military circles. His powerful jaws, capable of exerting over 200 pounds of pressure, closed on specific weak points in the holographic crystal warriors. The German shepherds, Shadow, Luna, and Storm, moved in perfect triangular formation, using their superior speed and agility to outmaneuver the simulated threats. The Rottweilers, Tank, and Brutus showed why they were considered living battering rams, while Aurora, the Husky, demonstrated the uncanny intelligence that had made her breed legendary among Arctic peoples. But it wasn't just their physical capabilities that had the Zaxuri transfixed. It was something more primitive, more fundamental. The dog's ability to sense electromagnetic fluctuations, a capability evolved from their wild ancestors' hunting skills, meant they could literally perceive the energy patterns within the aliens' crystalline forms. Every nervous flicker, every attempt at communication, every shift in their energy states, the dogs could sense it all. "They see your thoughts," Sarah explained, noting the aliens' growing discomfort. "Not in the way we understand thoughts, but they can sense the energy changes in your bodies that correspond to your emotional states and intentions. You can't hide anything from them." This revelation sent a visible shockwave through the Zaxuri delegation. Their species had evolved from crystalline formations that had achieved consciousness through complex energy patterns. The idea that these primitive Earth creatures could naturally perceive and interpret those patterns was more than unsettling. It was revolutionary. But how do you control them? One of the junior Zaxuri delegates asked, their transmission carrying undertones of genuine curiosity beneath the fear. Surely such perceptive predators cannot be truly domesticated. Sarah's response was interrupted by Rex, who had completed his training routine and returned to her side. Without any visible command, he sat down, pressed against her leg, his alert eyes never leaving the aliens. The bond between handler and dog was palpable, a partnership forged through trust and mutual respect that transcended simple training or control. "We don't control them," Sarah corrected gently. "We work with them. Thousands of years ago, our species formed a partnership. They chose to join us, to hunt with us, to fight beside us. They've been our guardians, our companions, our fellow warriors ever since. They stay with us not because we control them, but because they want to." The training field fell silent as the implications of this sank in. The Zaxuri, for all their advanced technology and supposed superiority, had never encountered a species relationship quite like this. Their civilization was built on hierarchy and control, on measurable superiority and technological dominance. The idea of a voluntary partnership between species, based on mutual trust and respect rather than domination, was alien to them in the truest sense. General Thompson chose this moment to step forward. "We've been patient with your mockery," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of service. "We've endured your condescension because we understand that by your technological standards, we might seem primitive. But perhaps now you begin to see that technology isn't everything." The Zaxuri leader's crystalline form shifted through several color patterns before stabilizing. Your creatures. They could potentially detect our phase shift technology. They transmitted slowly, as if coming to a disturbing realization. They could track our stealth units, sense our energy weapons before they're deployed. Now you're getting it, Sarah said quietly, as Rex and the other dogs maintained their vigilant watch. We may not have your advanced technology or your natural defenses, but we have something you never expected. Partners who evolved alongside us, whose very senses are attuned to beings like you. And that's just the beginning of what makes Earth's defenders unique. The atmosphere on the training field had shifted dramatically. Where once there had been mockery and condescension, now there was a palpable sense of respect, tinged with something the Zaxuri had likely never experienced before: uncertainty. Their previously impenetrable confidence had cracked, revealing a new understanding of just how complex and unpredictable Earth's defenses might be. As the sun began to set over the Nevada desert, casting long shadows across the training field, the day's events had made one thing abundantly clear. Humanity's place in the galactic community would never be quite what the Zaxuri had initially assumed. And somewhere in the growing darkness, a dog's keen senses picked up the subtle energy fluctuations of aliens coming to terms with a whole new understanding of what it meant to be a warrior. The Zaxuri's dismissive laughter had been replaced by thoughtful silence, but this was just the beginning. As Earth's first official extraterrestrial training exchange program was about to discover, the partnership between humans and dogs was about to revolutionize interstellar warfare in ways no one, human or alien, could have predicted. The revelation of Earth's canine advantage had far-reaching consequences that no one could have anticipated. Within weeks of the demonstration, the Zaxuri's attitude underwent a dramatic shift. Their initial reports back to their homeworld sparked intense debate among their military strategists. A species they had dismissed as primitive had suddenly demonstrated capabilities that challenged their entire approach to warfare. Word spread quickly through the galactic community. Other alien species, previously content to ignore Earth as an insignificant backwater planet, began to take notice. The Zaxuri's sudden interest in establishing a legitimate military partnership with Earth raised eyebrows across multiple star systems. After all, if something had managed to shake the notorious confidence of the Crystal Warriors, it warranted serious attention. 3 months after the initial demonstration, Sarah Chen found herself leading an unprecedented joint training program. The Zaxuri had requested, somewhat hesitantly, to learn more about working with Earth's canine warriors. It was during one of these training sessions that the first warning signs appeared. Rex's behavior changed suddenly during a routine exercise. His ears pricked forward, his body tensed, and he let out a low growl that Sarah had never heard before. The other dogs quickly followed suit, their attention focused on something far beyond the training field's perimeter. The Zaxuri representatives, who had been observing the session, began to pulse with rapid color changes that their human interpreters recognized as alarm. They sensed something, the Zaxuri leader transmitted, their crystalline form clouding with concern. Something that even we cannot detect. Before anyone could respond, every electronic device in the facility went dead. The advanced alien communication systems, Earth's military-grade equipment, even the simple digital watches, everything stopped working simultaneously. In the eerie silence that followed, only the dogs remained alert and ready. Their behavior pattern was unlike anything Sarah had seen in her years of training. They weren't just detecting a threat. They were responding to something that seemed to terrify them on a primal level. General Thompson immediately initiated emergency protocols, but without functioning communications, coordination became challenging. The Zaxuri representatives clustered together, their crystalline forms dimming in what appeared to be in defensive posture. That's when the dog's behavior pattern changed again. They formed a protective circle around both humans and Zaxuri alike, their hackles raised and teeth bared against an unseen enemy. They're not just sensing danger, Sarah realized, watching Rex's calculated movements. They're preparing for something specific. The realization hit her just as the air itself seemed to thicken with static electricity. The dog's warning had come just in time, but would it be enough? High above the Nevada desert, something massive began to take shape. The Zaxury's crystalline bodies vibrated in recognition, their color patterns shifting to what human observers would later describe as pure terror. Impossible, their leader transmitted, their usual confident tone replaced by something close to panic. They were supposed to be extinct. The dog's barking reached a fever pitch as the sky continued to darken. Sarah's hand tightened on Rex's harness as she watched the Zaxury's reaction. Whatever was coming, it was something that frightened even these nearly indestructible crystal warriors. And somehow, Earth's dogs had sensed it first. In that moment, as an ancient threat emerged from the depths of space, the true value of humanity's oldest partnership was about to be tested. The dogs stood ready, their ancient instincts merged with their training, preparing to defend not just their human partners, but even the aliens who had once mocked them. The question wasn't just whether they could face this unknown threat. It was whether the combination of human strategy, Zaxuri technology, and canine instinct could work together in time to save them all. As the air crackled with growing energy, Sarah Chen made a decision that would change the course of interstellar relations forever. What happened next would become legend across the galaxy, but first, they had to survive the next few minutes. The dogs, sensing the gravity of the moment, waited for her command. The fate of 3 species now rested on the bond between humans and their most faithful companions. The darkness above the training facility began to take shape, forming into what appeared to be massive, translucent beings that shared a haunting similarity to the Zaxury's crystalline structure. But where the Zaxuri shimmered with internal light, these entities seemed to absorb it, creating patches of unnatural shadow in the sky. The dogs' barking changed pitch, becoming more focused, more deliberate, as if they were trying to communicate something specific about the threat. The void crystals, the Zaxuri leader transmitted, their voice carrying a weight of ancient horror. They hunted our kind to near extinction before we developed the technology to fight back. But we thought we sealed them in the dark space between galaxies. The other Zaxuri clustered closer, their forms dimming further in what was clearly a defensive response. That's when Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Rex and the other dogs weren't just barking randomly. They were using different patterns, different tones. More surprisingly, the void crystals seemed to react to certain frequencies, their shadowy forms rippling as if in pain. The Zaxuri noticed it too, their color patterns shifting from terror to sudden realization. Impossible, one of the junior Zaxuri transmitted. They're disrupting the void crystal's energy patterns, just like the ancient sonic weapons we developed to fight them. But how? Before anyone could respond, the sky erupted with a sound that seemed to exist somewhere between light and darkness, between matter and energy. The void crystals began their descent, their massive forms distorting the very air around them. But instead of attacking immediately, they paused, their attention focused entirely on the dogs. The Earth's ancient defenders stood their ground, their barking now synchronized in a way that made the air itself vibrate with peculiar harmonics. General Thompson, who had been coordinating the base's physical defenses, suddenly understood. "They're not just sensing the threat," he said, turning to Sarah. "They're actually communicating with it. Or rather, they're weaponizing their communication against it." The realization hit everyone at once. The dog's barking wasn't just noise. It was a natural version of the very weapons the Zaxuri had engineered to fight these ancient enemies. But the void crystals had not survived UNs by being predictable. As if sensing the discovery of their weakness, they changed tactics. The darkness around them began to spread, not just blocking light, but seemingly absorbing all energy in its path. The Zaxuri's forms started to dim dangerously, their life-giving internal energy being drawn away. That's when the second twist revealed itself. As the darkness crept toward them, the dog's eyes began to emit a faint bluish glow. The Zaxuri's color patterns shifted to something entirely new, a pattern that their human observers had never seen before. The ancient texts their leader transmitted weekly, fighting against the energy drain. They spoke of guardians, beings of pure light that fought alongside our ancestors before we turned to technology. Sarah watched in amazement as Rex's fur began to shimmer with the same bluish light that emanated from his eyes. The other dogs followed suit, their forms beginning to radiate a soft, steady glow that pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The void crystals recoiled, their shadowy forms rippling with what appeared to be recognition. All this time, the Zaxuri leader transmitted, their voice filled with awe. "Your dogs are not just animals. They are descendants of the Light Guardians, the ancient protectors who taught our ancestors how to fight the void. When we embraced technology and forgot our old ways, they must have found refuge here on Earth, adapting, evolving, choosing to live alongside humans." The revelation hung in the air like a physical force, but there was no time to process it fully. The void crystals, perhaps sensing that their true nature had been discovered, launched their full attack. The darkness rushed forward like a tidal wave of anti-light, threatening to engulf everything in its path. Sarah looked at Rex, seeing her faithful partner in an entirely new light, literally and figuratively. The choice she made next would either save them all or doom 3 species to darkness. As she raised her hand to give the command, she realized that humanity had never truly been alone in the universe. Our greatest allies had been by our side all along, patiently waiting for the moment when their true power would be needed. The dogs stood ready, their ancient heritage finally awakened, as the darkness rushed toward them. The true battle between light and void was about to begin, and Earth's oldest partnership would determine the fate of not just one world, but an entire galaxy. Sarah's command cut through the chaos with crystal clarity. Together. It was a command that every military dog handler knew, but in this moment, it carried a weight that transcended simple training. Rex and the other dogs responded instantly, their glowing forms moving into a formation that seemed both tactical and ancient, as if they were drawing upon memories encoded in their very DNA. The void crystal's darkness surged forward, but instead of retreating, Sarah stepped forward with Rex, her hand resting on his now luminescent fur. The connection between them, built through years of trust and partnership, suddenly blazed with the same bluish light that emanated from the dogs. The other handlers followed her lead, each stepping forward with their partners, creating a circuit of light and loyalty that pushed back against the encroaching void. The Zaxuri, witnessing this display, began to pulse with a new pattern of colors. Their crystalline forms, nearly drained of energy moments before, started to resonate with the dog's light, the ancient harmony their leader transmitted with growing strength. The partnership we forgot. Without hesitation, they moved to stand alongside the humans and dogs, their crystalline forms adding their own frequencies to the growing symphony of light and sound. The void crystals halted their advance, their shadowy forms rippling with what seemed like confusion. The dog's barking reached a new intensity, but now it was harmonizing with the natural resonance of the Zaxuri's crystalline forms. The combined frequency created patterns of light that sliced through the darkness like solar flares, pushing back the void with each pulse. But the ancient enemy had one final card to play. The largest of the void crystals suddenly split apart, revealing a core of pure anti-light that threatened to consume everything in its path. It was a desperate gambit, one that would destroy the attackers along with their targets. That's when Rex did something unprecedented. His glowing form leaped forward, but instead of attacking, he sat down directly in the path of the void's core. His howl changed to a tone that seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. The other dogs joined in, their voices creating a harmony that hadn't been heard on Earth since ancient times. The void's core began to fluctuate, its darkness being transformed rather than destroyed. The Zaxuri's crystals vibrated in response, adding their own frequencies to the mix. They're not fighting the darkness, Sarah realized suddenly. They're rebalancing it. The ancient texts hadn't spoken of a war between light and dark, but rather a harmony that had been lost. The void's core collapsed in on itself, but instead of destruction, it reformed into something new. The darkness remained, but now it pulsed with its own inner light, like a night sky filled with stars. The remaining void crystals underwent the same transformation, their forms no longer threatening, but completing a cosmic balance that had been disrupted eons ago. As the transformed entities ascended back into the sky, the dog's glow gradually faded, though their eyes retained a hint of their ancient power. The Zaxuri's color patterns shifted to something entirely new, a symphony of light and shadow that reflected the newly restored balance. "We thought we needed to destroy the darkness," the Zaxuri leader transmitted softly. "But your dogs remembered what we had forgotten. The void isn't our enemy. It's part of the universal balance. They didn't just save us. They restored an ancient truth." But there was one final surprise waiting. As the last traces of the conflict faded from the sky, Rex turned to Sarah and barked once, a normal, everyday sound that carried no ancient power or cosmic significance. His tail wagged, and he looked at her expectantly, as if asking for his post-training treat. The other dogs followed suit, transforming from legendary light guardians back into the loyal, loving partners they had always been. General Thompson couldn't help but laugh. "After saving the galaxy, they still just want their treats and belly rubs," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "Maybe that's the greatest lesson here. Power isn't about domination or technology. It's about understanding, partnership, and staying true to who you are." The Zaxuri would never laugh at Earth's defenders again, but as they watched the dogs rolling over for belly rubs and playing fetch with their human partners, they finally understood something their advanced civilization had forgotten. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't the most sophisticated technology or the most destructive weapon. Sometimes it's as simple as the bond between two species who chose, countless generations ago, to face the darkness together. And as the sun set over the Nevada desert, casting long shadows that no longer held any terror, Rex looked up at Sarah with the same loyal devotion he had always shown, his eyes now holding both ancient wisdom and simple canine joy. The galaxy would never be the same, but some things, like the enduring partnership between humans and dogs, would remain beautifully, perfectly unchanged. In the weeks that followed the incredible events at the Nevada training facility, the world changed in both profound and subtle ways. The Zaxuri established their first permanent embassy on Earth, not in any major city, but near a renowned military working dog training center in Texas. Their crystalline forms became a common sight at K9 training facilities worldwide, where they worked to rediscover the ancient harmony their species had forgotten. The dogs, for their part, went right back to their normal routines. Rex still got excited about his morning training sessions with Sarah, still chased tennis balls when off duty, and still begged for extra treats. But sometimes, particularly on quiet nights, handlers would catch their dog's eyes glowing softly in the darkness, not with the intense light of cosmic guardians, but with a gentle reminder of their true heritage. Scientists attempting to study the phenomenon were left puzzled. No instruments could detect anything unusual about the dogs. No tests could reveal their hidden powers. As Sarah explained to a particularly frustrated researcher, "You're looking for something that can't be measured with machines. It's not about the science. It's about the bond." The Zaxuri's official report to the galactic community sparked a revolution in how advanced civilizations viewed Earth. Humanity was no longer seen as a primitive species that had somehow stumbled into space travel. Instead, we became known as the species chosen by the Light Guardians, the ones who had preserved the ancient balance, not through advanced technology, but through companionship and trust. One evening, as Sarah sat on her porch with Rex's head resting on her lap, General Thompson stopped by. "You know," he said, watching Rex's tail wag lazily, "I finally understand why they chose us." He gestured toward where Rex had dozed off, completely at peace. "We didn't try to control them or use them as weapons. We just loved them, became their family. Maybe that's what the galaxy needed to remember." The void crystals, now restored to their proper role in the universal balance, occasionally appeared in Earth's night sky, their darkness housing countless points of light like a living star field. The dogs would look up at them not with aggression, but with the casual interest they showed toward any natural part of their world. Perhaps the most significant change was in how humanity viewed its place in the universe. We had spent so long looking to the stars, wondering if we were alone, when our greatest allies had been curled up at our feet all along. Every pet owner, every handler, every person who had ever shared their life with a dog now walked with the quiet knowledge that they were part of something ancient and profound. As for Sarah and Rex, they continued their work at the training facility, now helping to teach both human handlers and Zaxuri representatives about the true meaning of partnership. Rex still approached every training session with the same enthusiasm, whether it involved basic obedience or channeling ancient cosmic energies. The funny thing is, Sarah told a group of new recruits one day, watching their dogs play together in the afternoon sun, "Nothing really changed, but everything is different. These aren't just our pets or our working partners. They're our link to something greater than ourselves. But you know what? They don't care about being cosmic guardians. They just care about being our friends. And maybe that's the greatest power of all." The story of how dogs saved the galaxy became legend, but not in the way most legends do. It wasn't a tale of great battles or advanced technology. Instead, it was a reminder that the most powerful forces in the universe are often the simplest: loyalty, trust, and the enduring bond between species who chose to face the unknown together. And if you look carefully on quiet nights, you might still see that faint blue glow in your dog's eyes. Not the fierce light of cosmic warfare, but the gentle reminder that your furry friend is more than just a pet. They're part of an ancient legacy of guardians who chose love over power, partnership over dominance, and who continue to protect humanity not because they have to, but because they want to. After all, at the end of the day, even ancient cosmic guardians just want belly rubs and treats.